Not gonna lie, elementary school through high school sucked. It was pretty much the worst. I had a really rough time in junior high, high school, that whole situation. Ever since I started school, back when I was living in Bellevue, which if you have the opportunity, please all availability, pass, don't live in Bellevue, it's terrible. At the school that I was going to, because I was a little bit slower at learning different things like reading and math, the teachers there said I wouldn't amount to anything, that I would never graduate high school, I'd never go to college, and a lot of really just depressing stuff like that they would put on my life. And I also had a lot of enemies in school because I wasn't a wealthy kid. I didn't come from a wealthy family, so I'd get threatened a lot, physically abused, verbally abused, and a couple times I had my life threatened, which was really weird. A 5th grader saying, "I'm gonna kill you." It's kind of weird. And I didn't know how to deal with those problems. I never did. So I'll get into the effects of that a little bit later. Psalm 69, verses 1 through 4 says, "Save me, O God, for the waters have come up to my neck. I sink in deep mire where there is no standing. I have come into deep waters where the floods overflow me. I am weary with crying, my throat is dry. My eyes fail while I wait for my God. Those who hate me without cause are more than the hairs of my head. They are mighty who would destroy me, being my enemies wrongfully. Though I have stolen nothing, I must restore it." In verses 2 and 3 in that psalm, the author David lays out exactly the way it feels when you haven't dealt with the problems that are afflicting you. And so I'm going to go back to that verse, those two real quick. "I sink in deep mire where there is no standing. I have come into deep waters where the floods overflow me. I am weary with my crying. My throat is dry. My eyes fail while I wait for my God." We often feel like that we're drowning when we don't deal with these things, because the nature of the way oppression works is it slowly tears you down from piece to piece to the point where you feel like you're literally drowning, ingesting water in your lungs, and it's terrible. I didn't follow God for a long time. My parents were like, "Jesus, you should follow him," and I did, but I didn't actively follow God. And so through this whole time of dealing with these problems at school, I didn't have a place to go to say, "Help me." I didn't think my parents knew what they were talking about, because face it, when you're in high school, you don't think your parents have ever been through the same things that you've been through. Actually talked to my parents about that recently. It was kind of fun. But how many of you guys can relate to that when you actively try to fight the battle on your own and you get absolutely nowhere? Rocky does. And sometimes we don't get an immediate answer to when we're calling out to God, like, "God, help me, I'm dying here," essentially. And if we don't get an immediate answer, we just brush God off and be like, "Oh, God isn't there, he's not on my side, he's not going to help me through this." So throughout high school, it just kept getting worse. More verbal abuse, more attacks. At one point, it got to the point where I was just walking around on the campus, and from, I don't know how far away it was, had a fast pitch of an apple back to the back of my head, knocked me flat on my face. So it just continually got worse. So one night, I'm like, "All right, God, this is it. If you don't show up right now, this is it." So I was going to commit suicide. I had the knife to my wrist, ready to place it and pull down. but I couldn't do it. It felt like there was something stopping that blade. And it took me a long time to really figure out what was going on there, what that all meant. And at that moment, all hope wasn't lost. Just like with King David in verses 13 through 18 of Psalm 69, where he says, "But as for me, my prayers to you, O Lord, in the acceptable time. O God, in the multitude of your mercy, hear me in the truth of your salvation. Deliver me out of the mire, and let me not sink. Let me be delivered from those who hate me. And out of the deep waters, let not the flood water overflow me, nor let the deep swallow me up, and let not the pit shut its mouth on me. Hear me, O Lord, for your loving kindness is good. Turn to me according to the multitude of your tender mercies, and do not hide your face from me, for I am in trouble. Hear me speedily. Draw near to my soul and redeem it. Deliver me because of my enemies." That night was the first time that I actually saw God in an authentic, relational way. The only experiences I've had before that with God were at church, I will leave nameless, and it wasn't God that I saw. I just was sitting there, and because I didn't fit in with that church in terms of my social status and such, it was just glares and basically just people staring at me and condemning me with their thoughts. So maybe you've gone through that. Maybe you struggle with other things. Maybe you're addicted to drugs. Maybe you're fighting the lies that people have put in your life, the labels that people have put on your life. You're sick, you're tired, you're broke, the economy sucks. I'm right there with you. And you're running out of options, you don't really know where to go. Verse 16 says, "Hear me, O Lord, for your loving kindness is good. Turn to me according to the multitude of your tender mercies." This answer that David says, turning to God's loving kindness, is the only way to get through these times where you have no direction. This answer manifested itself in the New Testament when Jesus was nailed to the cross, when he took every problem that we go through, every sin, every shortcoming, every failure, and said, "Let me take care of it." Maybe you need that in your life. Maybe you don't really know Jesus because you've been through these situations where the people that say that they're Christians condemn you from the things that you go through, the places that you are in your life. Thankfully, you don't have to deal with that anymore because Jesus gives you the opportunity to come to him and give him your